Hey guys, this is question 10C from the back of your quiz study guide. We're going to go through and fill out this entire chart, so it's going to be kind of a lengthy video for this one. So, starting off, we're going to start at point A. We're going to go ahead and find our kinetic energy and potential energy. So the two formulas you're going to use for that is Ke equals 1/2 mass times our velocity squared, and then our potential energy will be mass times our acceleration due to gravity times our height. So for our kinetic energy, we'd have a velocity of 0. So it'd be 1/2 times our mass given to us in the question was 0.42 kilograms. And then our velocity is 0 squared. So you might have already figured out that when you plug in 0, your answer is going to be 0. So your kinetic energy, when you solve all that, is going to be 0 joules. That's your kinetic energy. For your potential energy, it's going to be your mass times your acceleration due to gravity times your height. So, again, your mass is 0.42 times your acceleration due to gravity is 9.8 times your height is given to us 5 meters. So you would multiply those three numbers together. You're going to get 20.58 joules as your answer. So that's going to go here. And now to find your mechanical energy, ME, is going to be just your kinetic and your potential added together. So since you have 0 plus 20.58, it's going to be 20.58. And that's in joules. Your mechanical energy, since we are going to treat this roller coaster as a closed system, meaning all the energy stays within it, your mechanical energy is the same for every single point on this coaster. So you're going to have 20.58 here, 20.58 at point C, 20.58 at D, and 20.58 at E. So once you figured out point A, or whichever point you figured out at, is the same across the entire coaster, or whatever the situation is. All right. So now going on to point B, we can solve for our kinetic energy because we are given our velocity. So we're going to go ahead and plug in 1/2 times our mass of 0.42 times our velocity of 5 meters, and that is squared. So when we type all that in our calculator, we're going to get an answer of 5.25. Right? And again, all these energies are in joules. Now to find our potential energy, we don't have our height, but what we do have is our mechanical. So we can take that formula of mechanical equals kinetic energy plus potential energy. So we can take that formula, we can plug in our mechanical and our kinetic and subtract to get our potential. So when you do that, you're going to get 15.33. All right. Now you can use the answer from that, plug it into your potential energy formula, and get your height. So you're going to plug in 15.33, your mass of 0.42, your gravity of 9.8, and then you're solving for height. So you would multiply the 4.2 and the 9.8, and then divide it over to the other side. So when you do that, you're going to get an answer of 3.74, and your height is going to be in meters. All right, so that's how you're going to find your height. Now for point C, up here, we're on the ground, so our height is 0. So when you go in and plug height into your potential energy formula, since you're going to be plugging in a 0, you're going to get an answer of 0. So your potential energy here is going to be 0 joules. And that means all of your energy is then going to be kinetic energy. Right? And now we can solve for our velocity using our kinetic energy formula. So when you're solving for velocity, you'll use kinetic energy formula. So we'd have 20.58 equals 1/2 times your mass of 0.42 times your velocity squared, and you'll solve for V. So you go ahead and multiply 1/2 times 0.42, or you could, multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the 1/2, and then divide by 0.42. Either way is the same. And then at the end, you'd square root the number. When you do that, you're going to get an answer of 9.9, and that's going to be meters per second. So your velocity here is 9.9. Right? So, like point B, we had To find our height, we use potential energy formula. When we are finding velocity, like we did at point C, we're going to use our kinetic energy formula because that's what's in the formula. So it should make sense, hopefully. All right, moving on to point D, we are given our velocity. So this is going to be just like what we did for B. You're going to use, plug your velocity here into your kinetic energy formula. And then you are going to get that answer when you do that, just like we did at point B. It's going to be 7.56 meters, not meters per second, joules. And then you subtract just like we did at B. You'll do 20.58 minus 7.56. You'll get 13.02. And then to find your height, you're going to do just like we did at point B. You're going to use your potential energy formula. You're going to plug in 0.42, 9.8, multiply those, and then divide that 13.02 that you plugged in for this to get your height. And that is going to be 3.16 in meters. All right, so anytime you're finding your height, you'll have your potential energy, and you'll use that formula to solve for height. Now for point E, it's going to be just like what we did for C, because we have our height given to us, and this time instead of 0, it's 4. So you'd plug into your potential energy formula, you'd plug in your 0.42, your 9.8, and your 4 meters in height. You would get a potential energy of, 16.46 as your potential energy. And then you would subtract to find your kinetic energy, which is going to be 4.12 when you subtract. And then you would use your kinetic energy formula to find your velocity. All right. So you would plug in 1/2 times 0.42 times your velocity squared. That's going to be equal to that 4.12. And then you multiply that 1/2 times 0.42, divide it over this side, take the square root, and you're going to end up with an answer of 4.43, right? Just like what we did for point C. Right? So the basics of this is that you'll generally get one of the points on the coaster, or if it's a rocket launch in the air like the warm-up was, you will have you'll end up finding your total mechanical energy. Once you find that at any spot on the thing, that's the same across the entire coaster or launch or whatever it is, right? And you'll get that total by first finding your kinetic and potential using those two formulas, and then adding those together to get your total mechanical, right? From there, odds are you're going to be given either velocity or your height. So depending on what you're given, you would use the corresponding formula. So if you're given velocity, use kinetic energy formula because it has velocity in it. If you're given height, use potential energy formula because it has the height, right? You'll find it, and then you'll subtract that answer from the total to get the other potential energy. So if you had velocity and used kinetic, then you'd subtract to get your potential. If you found your height, you subtract it to get your kinetic, right? Then you'd use the opposite formula that you didn't use to find the missing piece, if it's height or if it's velocity, right? So I know this video is lengthy, but hopefully it helped you. If you still have questions, let me know, all right?